All right, so we're live on Facebook. We're recording this class as we record all of the classes. Today is a writing day, but we're going to focus on punctuation problems in OET. And I'm here with all the doctors in the doctors class. I just need to make sure they can see the medicine document. Can you all see that? It should say medicine at the top and also OET writing. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to do this warm-up that I did in the previous class. It's really good. Really, all I'm trying to do here is just get you guys to practice speaking on the microphone, turning your microphone on and off. Okay, so the warm-up is just going to be, I'm going to type something like that, and you're all going to put your microphones on and just shout out the name for that piece of punctuation. What is that?
Question mark.
Question mark.
Yeah, and think of it as like a game, like who can do it the fastest. This one.
Exclamation mark.
Exclamation mark. Okay, this one.
Dot.
Full stop
Full
or
stop.
period.
Full stop.
Full stop in English, in England,
stop.
we would say full stop. In the
Period.
US,
Full
we'd
stop.
say period. Yeah, they say period. This one?
Dash.
Yeah, this one?
Semicolon.
Semicolon.
Colon or semicolon? Which
Semi.
one?
Semicolon.
That's a
Colon.
semicolon. This one?
Semicolon.
Colon.
Colon.
That's a colon.
Colon.
Okay, this one?
Semicolon.
Apostrophe.
That's
Apostrophe.
called an
Sorry.
apostrophe. Good. What about if we have two like that? Oops, like that, sorry.
Quotation.
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 Call that a
mark.
quotation marks. Yeah, all right. What about, is there anything I missed? What about that?
At
At.
the rate of.
At.
That means at. Good. What about this one?
Brackets.
We call those brackets. Good. Yeah, brackets. Let's do. Have I missed any of them? What about? Well, we've missed the most important one.
Comma.
Comma.
That's the comma. All right. So we're studying punctuation today, right? Obviously, I'll be talking to you about lots of these symbols, but that was just a game. In this class, I want to try and do three things. As usual, we'll just define punctuation first, and we'll take some examples just so everyone's clear at the start. Then I'm going to say, like, what are the most common errors in OET? Yeah, I want you guys to tell me, and then I'll teach you how not to make those errors. And then we'll practice finding examples of those errors. I've actually taken all the exercises today from real OET letters from you guys and from nurses. Okay, so presumably, if you understand number 2, you will be able to find the errors in number 3. Okay, so think of it as like a test. Let's get started though. I'm just going to ask one person, 2 people, Clara and Vino. Could you guys put your microphones on?
Yes, I will.
I just want a definition of punctuation. It might sound like a silly question, but what is it? What is punctuation?
I know, but it's difficult to
Not easy to
explain.
define, is it? Yeah. Well, go on.
Yes.
How about I'll open it up to all of the class. Can you think of a word? That
I think that is some marks that you use.
Yes.
To...
That's what they. Yeah, they're marks, aren't they? Right. That's what I looked this up in the dictionary this morning. So they're marks, right? Dictionary definition is that
writing, separate
we use. Okay, we use in writing. Yeah, I'll put in writing. In writing to.
sentences,
To explain, I think.
separate sentences.
Well,
To
to
do-
separate
describe.
sentences or clauses, right?
Clause.
That's
Clause.
one. That's one use.
clause.
There's 2 though. Separate sentences or clauses, or someone said ideas. Yeah, we do use to separate ideas as well. Or what about if I use something like that? Well, that's not separating
Emotions.
something.
That's emotions.
Yeah, to communicate. Yeah, communicate like an
More
emotion or like
Expression.
a mode, right? Like, what does that one mean? Question mark. That's telling me that the person is not making a statement, right? It's a different mode of speaking. It's a questions mode, right? So according to the dictionary that I looked at this morning, to be honest, I wouldn't have been able to define that myself. Okay, you know it when you see it, don't you? You know it when you see it. But just Clara and Vino again, right? That's the definition. Marks that we use in writing to separate a sentence or clause or ideas, or to communicate an emotion or a different kind of mode of speaking. Okay, let's think about examples though, because examples are what really make things, I don't know about you, for me, it becomes much clearer when you look at these specific examples. So what is that? Can anyone tell me what that one is? We already did it, right?
Equals. Equals.
Equal to.
No, that one there, sorry.
Full stop or
Full
period.
stop.
Right. Full stop. We'll use the UK term, but yeah, you can also say period. That one is
Question mark.
Question mark.
question mark. I'll just put it here. Okay, this one is, you can all shout out.
Exclamation.
Exclamation.
How do I spell that? EXC.
CLAMATION.
I
Nice. Okay. Exclamation. We say
Ah.
mark again, right? These are marks. obviously.
MATION.
Oops, yep. Exclamation mark. Also, what about this one?
Dash.
Dash. Can you all shout out, guys, if you know it, as fast as you can? What about that one?
Semicolon.
Semicolon.
Semicolon. Okay. And what's the colon?
Double
Two dots. Two
Just
dots.
that's the colon. Okay.
up and down.
You shout out some punctuation. I've forgotten. Is there any more?
Comma.
Comma.
There's the famous comma. What else?
Apostrophe.
Apostrophes. Okay. What else?
Quotation
Now-
mark.
So I won't put apostrophe next because it looks confusing. So quotation marks look like that. Yeah, quotations.
Brackets.
Brackets. Good. Anything else? Is that all? I think that's pretty much almost all punctuation, isn't it? That we would ever usually use.
Mm.
I think that's it. Obviously, you've got things like this, but we don't really use this. This one, right? That's at. And this one, what does that mean?
And
Do I want to use that in my OET writing?
no.
No, it's very
No.
informal. Okay. So let's say that this is the usual for almost any email or letter or even an essay. You don't really need more than this for your punctuation. Now, today, I'm not going to teach you all of these. I can't teach all of these. All right. I'm just going to focus on the things that you need for OET. But I thought what I would do is I would just say, does anyone have any questions for me about these? I'm happy to take some questions. Q&A. Anyone?
Yeah, Alan, because all the other examples are quite, clear for understanding, but the use of comma is kind of confusing in OET.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's not something I can explain. Well, and not something I can explain to you now, right? But we're going to talk about it later. Yeah. But you're right. I think this is one of the hardest, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
all of them. What else though? You might have a question like, what's the difference between this and this? Or can I do this?
When
Like
to use
small-
semicolon and colon sometimes, very confusing.
Yeah. So, okay. So colons are usually used. Look, there's many ways you can use them, but it's usually for a kind of a list, right? I bought, right? Usually when we're listing things. Look, you can see my colon here. Look, examples, colon. That means all of these are like lists of this. It's like such as.
Can we use this for medication? Amoxicillin, erythromycin.
I would say don't use the colon in OET. No, you don't need it. I'm not saying you can't. It is possible, but it's not the style that I see. It's not usually necessary. Same with the semicolon. You don't really need the semicolon.
No.
And actually, there's a lot of writers in English who hate the semicolon. For example, there's some very famous English writers like George Orwell. Does anyone know George Orwell?
No.
I
He
heard
wrote a
about
famous book called 1984. He wrote a famous book called Animal Farm. He's one of the most famous English authors in the last, say, 100 years, one of them. And he famously hated them and refused to use them and said they were stupid, right? But he was a great writer, but very journalistic style, okay? He just said, I don't need them, I hate them, okay? What's the difference between a dash and a semicolon? Often nothing. Often there's nothing between, right? So all these things, I don't want to get into them today because you don't really need them for OET, okay? Anyone got any more general questions though? Maybe you have something that you've always been confused about you want to ask me now. Just leaving some space.
Yes,
Mhm.
Alan, please. How much we are allowed to use the brackets?
That's a great question, right? I was hoping someone would ask me that. I don't overuse them, okay? You can use them a little bit, but it is bad style, right? Genre and style to use them all the time.
Maybe just for the medication?
Yeah, you could, for example, just use it as long as it's not in every paragraph for every single thing. Yeah, you'll know what it feels like. Just use it once or twice in the letter. Same with semicolons. It's bad style to use too many semicolons, right? So use them a little bit, but it is bad style to use them all the time. What about quotation marks? Now, you're all doctors, and this is very important. No one's asking me about quotation marks. Don't you think you need to use them as doctors?
Not to show
much.
statement.
But
Product.
we can see it on the
Not
you
in
know,
the letter, I think.
reading articles.
Well, this you can see it in reading. Okay, so
Yeah.
you need to know, but you wouldn't put quotation marks in a letter.
In a
You're right.
letter,
No,
yes.
No, no.
What you would use though is you would use 2 apostrophes,
Yeah.
and they'd have the same meaning as quotation marks. Okay, so in a letter, the style, you might say something like this: Mr. Jones, right, told me he wanted to die, right? I'm only using this example because it's from real case notes. I did the same example with the nurses, right? Wanting to die, is that formal or informal?
Informal.
Informal.
Right. So if it's like
Informal.
this, if I say that, now I'm being informal and I'm going to lose marks in my letter,
Yeah.
right? Because those are my
Mhm.
words. They're informal words. But if I put this here, what does it mean?
Take by patient.
He
Patient.
talking.
Maybe I have to
Yeah.
put it in the present tense. He would say something like present. Yeah, I want to die, right? He told me
Yeah.
he, maybe you do it like that because so I can get the third person singular. But you get the idea, right? So this is not a very
Yeah.
good example. How about this? Mr. Jones said, right, I want to die. There we go. That's better. So you can use it if you ever feel like, well, that seems informal, but I want to use that term anyway. Use quotation marks, but use only one. Use
Yeah.
2 apostrophes. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you have
Sorry,
no problem. Yeah,
Alan,
questions.
I have a question. Yeah.
Mhm.
When we have a question in the quotation mark, where
Mhm.
should put the question mark?
If it's part of the question, that's a good question. Some people
Yeah.
say it should be here. Some people say it should be here. There's actually when I was at university, there was different. I remember being confused because different people said different things. Right?
Oh.
There's a debate over whether you should put commas as well inside or outside these. But for you, you don't need to worry about that. Okay.
No, because you said general question. It was a question always just to keep him. Yeah. Where should I?
It's very rare to even use a question mark in an OET letter. I've never seen it. Okay. So I don't think you would lose hardly anything if it was outside or inside.
Okay. Thank you.
So long as it didn't change the meaning, I'd have to see the context, right? Yes, go on. Another question.
I hear you and Paul say Oxford comma. Which is the Oxford comma?
Yeah. We'll talk about that a bit later, but the Oxford comma is just when you're listing. So you do a list and you say, I like, what things do we like here?
Ice cream.
I like banana, comma.
I've got an ice cream just down there in the fridge, actually. It's very hot today.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm going to have I like ice cream, and I'll have it later. I like ice cream, cheese.
Chocolate.
I love cheese, and
Chocolate cake.
chocolate. So I like the way that these doctors are not suggesting healthy food. Interesting. So I like ice cream, cheese, and chocolate cake. Now this one is the Oxford comma. That's it. Some people say that you don't need that. Some people say you do need that.
Okay.
So again, it's a bit like what I was saying to Hayat, like it just doesn't matter. You can
Excuse me, Alan.
Okay.
Some people use comma before and also before but.
Now, we'll talk about that in a second, but it's to do with clauses, right? If and is joining 2 clauses together, separate clauses, then you have a comma. But sometimes you say like, I like apples and bananas.
No
Do
comma.
we need a comma?
No,
because it's just joining 2 nouns together. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the reason. You know, a lot of native speakers are very confused about commas, right? So we're going to talk a bit more about this, but that's just punctuation in general, right? I'm just going to remind you of where we are. What is punctuation? They're marks that we use in writing to separate a sentence or clause or ideas, but also to communicate emotion or a mode of speaking, right? One other thing that you'll see that we haven't mentioned here is capitals. I think capitals would be punctuation.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll talk about that later. Let's go into something a bit more relevant for you guys, which is what are the most common punctuation errors in OET, right? What are the things that you guys need to avoid when you're in your exam? Okay,
Always.
in that case, it's not, you don't have to learn all of those things we've just been talking about. There's only, well, I reviewed it this morning. I've got this on some paper here. I reviewed it and I looked through all these things. To be honest, I already knew what they would be, but I reviewed about, say, 15 essays and it was the same errors all the time. 99%, exactly the same errors, okay? And I was thinking, I bet they can guess what they are, right? If you take all these here, what do you think is the number one thing that people make errors with?
Comma.
The use of
Comma.
use of comma.
That, all right? I'll talk to you about that in a second, but what do you think is the second most common?
Capital letter writing. Writing capital.
I'm going to add in an extra one that I didn't do this in the nurses, but I think you're right, Capitals. Although I didn't really see that when I was reviewing, but it's definitely true. All the time, people get confused about drug names for capitals, okay?
Oh,
But there's one more. What do you think is?
Brackets.
Apostrophes.
People don't make mistakes with brackets. They're normally quite good.
Apostrophes.
It's the apostrophe. Thank you.
Apostrophes, yes.
All the time, okay? Now, the last two I can explain to you fairly easily, right? Just talking and typing here. So apostrophe and capitals, I can explain that fairly easily, but the comma, it's more complicated, okay?
Yeah.
So let's start with the comma. What do you think the most common error is with commas? Can anyone guess? It's actually a really easy error.
For example, Alan, when we write, personally, I'm sometimes confused. I'm writing to refer Mr. Thomas, and then who has diabetes, yeah?
Okay, relative clauses. You're right,
Yeah.
that's the second most popular, that's the second most common error, okay?
Yeah.
So
Or
I am writing to refer, go on.
Mr. Thomas or
Let me just
Mr.
say I'm writing
Smith.
regarding Mr. X, Mr. Blank, yep, who was admitted, right,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. So this comma here is an example of a comma with a relative clause. Do I need this one? What do you all think?
No,
Yes.
I think no.
You do need it.
Yeah.
Right?
I
We'll
need
talk
it.
about that. Yeah. That you don't see a lot of errors with that one, but you see all the time things like this. This one drives me crazy. Please note that comma, she is not feeling well.
No,
What's wrong with that?
No. After
No.
that, there is
After
no
that.
comma.
After that,
Because it
there
is
should be no
continuation.
comma.
It is
Yes.
one sentence.
So we'll talk about that in a second. That's wrong, obviously. Okay, so sometimes you need to have a comma, sometimes you don't. Right. So very quickly, why do we need a comma with a relative clause? What is a relative clause, by the way? Just quickly.
Yeah, to join two clauses without repetition the name of the person or the things.
Yeah. What that's a really nice definition. Let me ask to build on that, Hiba and Hala, and I'm going to ask Marwish. We always use these types of words in relative clauses, don't we? They're called relative pronouns. Can you give me examples of them? Who, that,
To whom?
not usually what,
No?
but maybe
What?
which,
That.
whom is one, actually.
Whom.
That, okay. These are
How.
relative clauses. So why do we use a comma
Because
sometimes?
they defining and
Anyone?
Because it is between some noun and
Well, someone said defining and non-defining, which is exactly the right answer. Was that Irina?
yeah.
I need to make this more simple because that's very jargony, right? So there's a much more simple way to think about it. I'm simplifying this because it's more complicated than this, but we use commas sometimes. We use a comma, right? When the information, this will help you usually, right, is not essential to the sentence, right? And by essential, I mean something like this. Look, if I put a comma here, that means that this is not essential.
Yeah.
So that means that is a good sentence. Does that make sense to anyone here?
No.
Please note.
No.
Finish.
No.
What note?
Right.
What no?
So in that case, we definitely wouldn't have a comma. In this case, though, I'm writing regarding Mr. Jones. All right. Now think about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Who is he writing about?
No.
Mr. Jones, right?
Mhm.
So
Please.
what comes after is just adding to it,
Yeah.
right?
Extra.
It can
information.
stand alone without it, right? In some sense. So it's all about just try and think, just try and ask yourself, is that essential to the sentence or not? If it's not essential, put your comma in. If it is essential, leave it out. Now I know that it's a bit more complicated than that, but I'm trying to do a lot today, so I'm just going to leave it there. That will help you 9 times out of 10. You'll get the right answer. Okay. Now, a bigger, actually, higher, more than relative clause errors. You see this linker at start of sentence. That's the number one. When I reviewed your work, that was the number one. So you might say on the 9th July, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Jones was admitted. What's the
No,
problem
July.
here?
On
After
9 July,
July,
comma.
comma.
July.
Comma.
That one.
Yeah.
But this is what I was saying before we started. Like, I think you guys just forget, don't you?
Mhm.
But let's think about the linkers where you need to use this. So you would say on 9th of July, you might say during
However,
Hospitalization.
hospitalization. Do I need a comma now? Oops.
Yes.
Yes.
Give me another example of something where I need a comma like that.
on her,
Okay.
like on her,
On
her,
Consequently, subsequently.
Consequently, yeah,
Yeah.
comma,
however,
subsequently.
Despite having
Therefore.
Now,
Yeah.
no.
Mhm.
in the other class, they were saying things like despite. And the despite,
However.
no, because look, despite is not a linker. That's a
No.
clause, right?
However.
That's like a sentence, right?
Yeah.
Despite
Therefore. Yeah.
being, being a man who likes
Yeah.
to blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Mm.
So not although,
No.
not despite. That's something
As a
different. That's
result
clauses,
of.
right?
However,
Additionally.
However, that's a
However.
linker, isn't it? That's a linker.
However.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a linker is a word that's kind of like, it's not really part of the sentence. It's just coming before the sentence.
Just before the sentence.
And it's linking 2 sentences together. Something
Yeah.
like that. All right. So you get the idea. So guys, I'm just going to remind you, don't forget, try not to forget your commas here, right? Let me just try this, totalization. Don't forget your commas. This is because it wants me to put a Z there, which is a US spelling. In the UK, we don't use Zs like that. Okay, there's another big error with commas. Can anyone guess what it is? Big error with commas. All the time I see this problem. But I've actually forgotten it now. What is it?
With medication and dosage, name of
Listing.
medication. And
There you go. Were you in the previous class, Hayat? Also,
No.
actually, yeah, I was going to say you're inside my mind. Actually, one of the nurses said the same thing. I knew you guys would be able to guess this, right? So it's linkers at the start of sentences, it's relative clauses, and it's medication. So you get people saying things like this. Mr. Green is taking, right, metformin. That's okay so far.
Comma.
400 mg. I hope that's not a bad amount.
Now, comma.
Have I just killed him with that? I don't know. Is 400? Is that okay? Daily, right? And he is, I don't know, happy, something like that. So what's the problem?
comma after metformin.
Metformin.
We're going to put it here,
Mhm.
and we're going to
After
put it here,
400 milligrams.
and I'm even going to put it here as well,
Daily.
right? Why? What's the rule? Simple rule.
Yeah, because it separate the name, the dosage, and the frequency of the medication.
Separate the dosage and the schedule, right? With commas, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, with commas. That's it. There is something else you can do if you want to be clever. Sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm being very repetitive here, right? If you want another structure you can use, I can take 400 away here. What can I do?
Before metformin.
Yeah.
400 mg, and what's the preposition?
Of.
Right? I don't need a comma now because of.
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
I'm sorry, I'm not spelling metformin right.
If you are
So-
using, sorry, Alan, if you are
Formin,
using oral,
M-I-N.
intravenous, or something like that, how?
I would say separate the way, the intravenous as well. Yeah. Okay.
And
So with
in this
commas.
case, what is better?
So you might say orally, like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Do we have to write IV or intravenous?
That would be if the supposedly if the reader will understand IV, then you can
Yeah.
write IV.
Mm.
If you think, hey, I know how to spell intravenous, I want to impress OET with my good language, you
Mhm.
could do that as well. So it's medication. So I'm just giving you I'm not going into all the details here. I'm just saying, usually we would separate out dosage and schedule
Mhm.
if it's coming after the drug with commas. All right. So just to summarize this, link is at the start of a sentence, however, during hospitalization, consequently, subsequently, even like first, comma. Don't
Yeah.
forget your commas, please. All right. Relative clauses, ask yourself, is this information essential, not essential? If you think you can remove it and the sentence still makes sense, you should be able to put a comma there, right? And lastly, medication, dosages and schedules with commas, okay? Now, the other big reason that people make mistakes with commas is something that I'm going to probably address tomorrow, okay? It's clauses, understanding them,
Mhm.
right? Understanding them. So I'm going to put a link here. I will put a link to an old class where I talk about this. But also, I think tomorrow we've got a Q&A session, so I'll do a lot on clauses. I'm going to do that with the nurses as well, okay? So when I say that that's one of the big problems, I think one of the main issues with understanding commas is understanding, like when you said, was it Sanjida who said, when do I need a comma with and or not and?
Mhm.
But, do I put a comma before but or not? That's about clauses.
Mm.
And recognizing when something is a clause and when it's not, okay? All right, so I'll come back to that tomorrow. Apostrophe, what do you think the errors are in OET for apostrophes? What kind of sentences do people always get wrong?
Possessive noun.
Yeah.
Possessive, right?
Possessive.
So Mrs. Green treatment or
Green.
surgery, let's say, went well. What's wrong?
Mrs. Green's
S.
means
Yeah, right.
apostrophe S.
Okay, do you have any questions
Without
about this?
S.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alan.
Go on.
If the name of the person ended by S.
That's
So
what I
where-
thought. That's why I asked. Yeah. Is anyone thinking the same as me and Hayat? What if they're called Mr. Jones? Do I do that?
No.
No.
Well, actually, when I was training to be a teacher, I had to learn this, and so I researched it. And actually, you are allowed to do that,
Mhm.
but no one does, right? Most people do that.
Yes. Mr. Jones.
Okay. So that's actually in the material that I saw when I was studying. It said it was okay for names. Okay, if it was a person's name, you were allowed to do it. But in this case, I'm just going to say usually what native speakers do is they'll just put one apostrophe, and they won't put the second S. Does it have the same meaning?
Yeah.
Okay. And what is the meaning, Irina? If you could tell us, or one of the other doctors, what's the meaning here? Daniel?
Explain the possessive.
Is his
Possession.
surgery.
It's his, isn't it? It's
His.
possession.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Surgery.
Which brings us to what we were talking about before, the class. There's another way that I use apostrophes. What if you said something like, she can't attend the surgery preparation
Can't.
on
C-A-N.
Tuesday?
T.
Cannot.
And
So is that right or wrong? If I say,
Wrong.
Writing wrong.
okay, so
Now it's
Contraction.
right.
I'm going to put my apostrophe in. Now, is it right or wrong?
Right.
Wrong.
It's right in terms of punctuation, but in OET, is it right?
Contraction.
It's
No.
not right in OET. Cannot.
So we can't do it in writing. We can do it in speaking. So do
Cannot.
not do any contractions at all,
Mhm.
okay, in writing. What other contractions are there? We've got can't, won't, what else?
Yeah.
Do not.
Wouldn't.
Don't.
Wouldn't.
Won't,
That's
don't,
that's it. That's
haven't,
Haven't.
haven't. Didn't.
didn't,
Wouldn't.
all modals, couldn't,
Wouldn't.
Wouldn't.
Shouldn't.
Yeah,
Wouldn't.
right, and so on. No contraction should be, as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure that's 100% should be in the writing. However, as we were saying at the start of class, and as I've said this to the nurses as well, contractions in speaking actually sound a bit more friendly. Okay, so if you say you cannot do that, sir, that's much stronger than I'm sorry, you can't do that. Right? It just sounds a little bit more friendly when you use in the speaking some contractions. So that's apostrophes. I'm going to assume that we're okay with that. Okay, it seems quite simple to me. It's possession or a contraction. Does anyone have any questions though about that? Just quickly. Okay, we're going to move on to capitals, but I'm going to say goodbye to the people on Facebook. Hope it was useful today. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care. I don't know why I said it. I hope you enjoyed it there. Okay, we're off Facebook. Capitals, right? I know that you've probably heard me say this a million times, but it's probably worth it, isn't it? Because like I was saying, very often we make errors just because we forget, not because we don't understand. So one more time, why do we use capitals?
Because of
Medication.
nouns. Noun.
The start of the sentence.
Start of name, start of
Start of
date,
sentences,
start of
yeah.
person.
I'm not going to teach that because I think we all know that. I'm just going to ask Obaida and Adam if he's here, and also Hiba. Can you put your microphones on?
Yes.
You only use them for, what do I always say? Like Alan, Manchester.
For names.
Names
names of
and
people, names of cities.
Now, there's many different types of names, and that's the main reason why we use them. People, places, what else? Organizations, right? That's where you get drug brand names.
Brand.
Like Nike. Yeah. Well, Nike's just a brand, but it's an organization, right? There's only one. It's the name of that organization. Give me some drug brand names. Anyone know?
Warfarin.
Is that actually a brand name, or is it the generic drug name?
It's a brand
scientific
name.
So there is a company that sells this, and that's the name that they chose. Yeah.
I don't know. This is the name of. It's not pharmacological. Pharmacologically, it's anticoagulant. Yeah.
I'm willing to agree with you guys, but obviously Tylenol. I don't know if I've spelled that right. Tylenol. What type of drug? Just to make this clear for everyone, Tylenol is a brand name for paracetamol, right? So we would not capitalize paracetamol because it's generic drug, but the brand is we would capitalize. Okay, that's it. That's how it works.
And certain diseases we use capital letters.
Only when it's people's names, right? It's the same rule. Like Parkinson's, that was a guy, right?
Alzheimer's.
Yeah, these were people who discovered it or had it, right? So Parkinson's disease. Now, would I capitalize disease?
No,
it's just the person's name. Okay. What about there is one other thing in OET, departments.
Emergency department.
Emergency department.
Now, imagine I said to you something like this: take me to the oncology ward. Imagine I'm writing you an email, right? Do I need to capitalize it there?
Oncology.
I think yes.
Is that going to be
yes.
Depends on, is that the name, the specific name in the hospital? Probably not. It's probably going to be more complicated, isn't it? It's going to be like oncology ward 3 or something, won't it? You know what I mean? Or it might say something like special oncology ward. You see what I mean? It's the difference between it being the specific name or just the general term.
Specific name.
A specific name.
Give me some department names from your hospital.
ICU, intensive care unit.
So that's from your hospital, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So is it called the intensive care unit? Is that the exact name that's on the door?
It says capital ICU.
But so you could say ICU, but what my point is, on the door in the hospital, if I go there and I read it, will it say exactly intensive care unit, or will it say like something else?
HDU.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's
That's my point. It's just if that is the specific name, then you would capitalize it. Okay? If you're just talking in general, like take me to a cancer ward, I don't care, then there's no capitals.
Okay.
right? And that's pretty much it. It's much simpler than you think. It's just names of stuff. What is a name? A name is like a word we give to when there's only one of them, right? That's it. So I'll remind you of that later, but again, I'm going to zoom out and just say, does anyone have any questions for me before I test you on all this?
Alan,
Yes.
yeah, you said we can't say write cannot in writing. If conditions like she cannot attend appointment, what we can say?
No, you're saying cannot,
Yes.
right? That's
And
not a
writing,
contraction, is it? Right?
yes.
So you can say cannot like that. That's okay. And you can also say, I believe that that's formal.
Okay.
But it's not a contraction, is it? There's no apostrophe. Okay. So yeah, just say will not, cannot, could not in your letters. Good question. Anyone else with this?
Yes, Alan, what happened in a listening when test if you heard a name of a medication and we are not sure about to write it in capital or small letter, what should we? Yeah,
I'm pretty sure, no one has ever told me, but I'm pretty sure they'll give you that grade for listening, right?
Yeah.
And they allow a small amount of misspelling, so presumably they'll allow small punctuation errors as well, if it doesn't change the meaning, okay? Now, guys, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you, I think I chose 12 real sentences from your work, also some nurses as well, but there's a fair few doctors ones in there. And if you understand this, let's see if you can find the errors yourself, okay? In each sentence, sometimes there's more than one of these errors, but every sentence has these errors. Are you ready to find me some errors? Oops. If you are, before we do it, I need to ask you, can you practice drawing on my screen? Because I would like you guys to, when I say find the errors, like find it like that. Can you guys, if you look at the top or the bottom of the screen, you'll see a little like pen. It says like annotate. Yeah, there you go. Just practice now to make sure you can do it. If you're on a phone, unfortunately, it's not very accurate, or sometimes it just doesn't work, but you're looking for that one. Okay, here we go. All right, so what I'll do now is I'll show you these sentences. Okay, I'll show you the sentences, and then we'll spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes. You can annotate them, you can draw on them, find them. If you want to put it into the chat box, I don't mind if you just want to put it into the chat box as well. Okay, here are the errors. 1 second, I'll just put this on a separate page. Can you all see those 12 there? Yeah, it's quite a lot. Yeah, so I'll just clear your drawings. All I want you to do is read each sentence and find me the error. So the first one, let's just do the first one together. Vino, all of you guys, you found it already, right? It's after which. We don't need a comma there, of course. Do I need a comma before?
Yes.
Is it essential information or not essential information, right? Ask yourself that. Okay, you got 3 minutes. Type in the chat or draw on my screen. Find me these errors, please. Okay, off you go. Okay, I'm just going to keep an eye on the chat here. Okay, so Marwish, no comma because 4 is there. Now, I'm not so sure about that, Marwish. I think that the information is not really essential to the first clause. There's 2 clauses. One of them is a subordinate one. I think it needs a comma, okay? I'll talk more about that in a second. Okay, this is nice to see on the screen. Just draw a little circle around what you see or just type in the chat. So Abdullah's saying number 2, today's visit, comma. Good man. Mohammed, you're saying for which does need a comma. I think you're right, but before the preposition, we need one. Okay. All right. You've got 1 more minute of thinking time.
Excuse me, Ellen, my pen is not working. I don't know why.
Oh, sometimes it doesn't work on Zoom, so just you could type into the chat if you want, or
Okay.
we're nearly finished now anyway. So you can just think it in your head, you know, just go through in your mind, and then you'll see the answers very soon. Okay, so that was 3 minutes, 10 seconds. Let's go through this all then. I've been reading some of your comments. What I'm going to try and do now is, just so you can all have a copy of your corrections, let me just take a copy here. All right. And I'll clear your, it looks like, judging by this, there's a lot of good work. You guys understand what I've been talking about. Let me just put this here though. So I'm gonna make a table. And you can have your work on the left, like that. 1 second, and then I'll do the corrections with you as well live. And then, as I said, tomorrow we'll talk about clauses in more depth for the comma issue. If you have any questions about that. So let me just try and make this presentable. Okay, so let's think about that first one. Don't worry, I'll zoom in a second. Oh yeah, go on. Any questions? I'll take some general questions. Yeah.
Yeah, just about the tenses. She has been prescribed, was prescribed with medication.
Well, we can talk, it all depends on context sometimes with present perfect, right? So we need to know what the situation is. So I'll talk about that in a sec. I just want to have my corrections next to your, if you want to study this later. Here we go. All right. We'll have this one as a, no, here it is, 12. Okay, so, this one can just be a bonus one at the end. All right, so let's go through some of these. Hopefully you can see this now a bit clearer on both sides. And I want you guys to ask me questions. If I do something that you're not sure about, just ask me like, well, why did you change that? Or, okay. So number 7, you're quite right. We don't need the comma here. Well done if you saw that. I do need the comma here though, because the information is not essential, right? By essential, I mean, can I remove it and it still kind of makes sense? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes.
I know that Mr. Green has been experiencing something. It's anxiety, right? Okay, so that one just needs a comma there. What about today? Upon today's visit, Mrs. Day, what do I need, guys?
Visits,
Comma
after visit.
Obviously that one there, yeah. Now, what about today's? Because one of the nurses was saying, oh, do I need it here or not? What do you think?
No. Apostrophe?
It's correct, isn't it?
Apostrophe is correct.
It's very strange to say that, though, isn't it? Like, does the visit belong to the day?
Yeah.
I guess it does.
Yeah.
You could say last year's movies.
Yeah.
Right, those movies belong to last year. Okay. So upon today's visit, comma, sorry, I put this in the wrong place. Sorry. Mrs. Day presented alone, and she reported having numbness and tingling in her 4th and 5th left hand fingers. Now, it's wrong, isn't it? This is more of a grammar problem. I told you these are real.
Left hand.
Hand.
We don't say it like that. We don't use the possessive apostrophe for hands and fingers. Okay. How can I change that? Anyone?
In her left hand.
Her left
So
finger.
in her fourth and fifth fingers, right?
Of her
say
left hand.
Off left hand.
Of
her left
here
hand.
we would use of her left hand. Okay. I know that's tricky, but this is from Sarah Day. So many of you have probably written that before. So maybe take note of that. Okay, next one. Obviously, we don't need a full stop here, but she was on Voltaren. Do I need capitals or not?
No.
Is it a brand name?
Yeah,
Brand name.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it is a
yes.
brand name.
Yes.
So do I need capitals?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. All right. And of course, what do I need here?
Comma.
After Voltaren.
Daily.
500 milligram, comma, daily, comma.
Cope with the pain, and the same as discontinuity before the surgery. Okay. Moreover, we've got a comma here. Her staples need to be removed after 10 days in the orthopedic outpatient department. What's the problem?
Department, the small letter.
Department.
Now, this is the thing. If it's a name, then give me the full name, right? Every word will have a capital if it's a name of the department, right? But if I'm not talking about the name,
Can be small letter.
then I'll put them all in small, right? Well, maybe that's not the name. Maybe that's the generic idea of some department. Yeah, anyone, right? I know that we know specifically which one because we've got the. But if that is not the specific name of the department, then you don't need capitals. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and do we need to put the if it's not specific?
Well, yeah, because usually you're writing and it's your hospital, so the reader will know which one, right?
No, I mean for about use of article. If it's
yeah,
not,
that's what, it depends on the situation. Usually, though, someone is writing to you, the reader, and it's your hospital that has that department in it. So the reader knows which one, and if you know which one already, then you use the. Right? If the reader doesn't know which one you're talking about, then you would say
okay.
And then you couldn't use the name. It would have to be generic, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So in this case, let's just assume that it's the actual name and that the reader knows that. Okay. So please note that. What's wrong here?
Comma.
No,
it's not
no comma before that.
Mrs. Walter.
Don't do that. That drives me crazy, this error, right? You see it all the time. Why do people make that error all the time?
Maybe emphasize.
Because after please note, usually we use comma.
That's why. Look, I can say please note, comma.
Yeah.
But not after that. Please note that.
I can't have that,
continuation.
right? But now it's fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So that's why people make the mistake, because they think that it's a linker. It's not a linker, it's a relative clause. Okay. Consequently, what do we need?
Comma after.
Oops. Consequently, comma, she was advised about losing weight and increasing exercise. Is it okay? I think it's all right.
Can we put comma before and, because it's weight loss and exercise?
Yeah, and I'll explain this tomorrow. No, you can't, because it's only one clause. Right, it's only one clause.
Okay.
Mr. Dunbar first visited our clinic in December 2017 with type 2 diabetes. And what do you think? This one's really hard.
Dunbar's.
After Dover, but put a comma.
Comma? No. Do I need one here?
Apostrophe.
Yeah, I think yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But do I need capitals here? What do we think? Daniel, Adam,
No.
Marwish?
No.
I really feel like I want to put them in, but we don't. Yeah.
Okay.
I've checked this already online. I was worried that definitely not for diabetes, right? Never. Okay.
No.
But I was thinking, I wonder if type 2 is like a name in some sense.
No, you
But
can.
I Googled it and no one uses the capital. If you look at lots of the articles, it's just a condition, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm hereby discharging a patient, comma, Mrs. Thompson, to your care and assistance who was admitted to. What's wrong with this? Lots of things.
A patient, not comma. Mrs. Thompson, comma.
Oh yeah. Now this is the thing. So this isn't really punctuation, but yeah, let's say can I have that to start off with? Is that allowed? No, because I've got who here. The who must be next to the name. It's got to be like that.
Mrs. Thompson, who was? Yeah.
Right. So that's the first error. That's a grammar error. Okay. Now, can I say the patient?
No, you can.
Discharging No, Mrs. Thompson.
Usually no, right? Never
No,
use the
it means
patient.
who.
But there's one situation in OET when I think you can, right? It's when you're writing to a doctor who already knows them.
Mm.
So you might say, I'm hereby discharging your patient.
Or
Then
updating.
and then you immediately give the name,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as the name is here next to this, I think it's not bad. The reason why OET don't like patient is it sounds cold and unfriendly, right? They're human beings, they're not patients, that kind of thing, okay?
Yeah.
So number 9. Oh, sorry, there's one other error here. What's the other error?
After July, can't.
I'm here
On
by.
11th July.
I don't think you
Comma?
need a comma here. You could
Yeah.
have one if you want, but it's not necessary.
Osteoarthritis capital letter.
Is that a
Osteoarthritis
name of something?
No,
No.
Just a condition.
Osteoarthritis
Just a
is
condition. Okay. No capitals for conditions. He's currently on metformin. So what about this one?
Comma.
Comma.
After
Metformin.
metformin,
Metformin
Yeah.
is brand name.
500, comma.
Is it a brand name? Are you sure?
I think metformin is
Double
brand
check
name.
that because I think a lot of people don't think it is.
No.
So this one, I'm going to put commas where else?
3 times day, 3 times.
Say a day sounds
times.
better. Okay. So comma, Ramipril,
Ramipril, comma.
5 mg,
comma,
5 mg,
comma, 5
comma,
mg, comma, daily.
right, daily,
Warfarin,
and then
warfarin.
comma.
3 to 5 mg daily.
Now it's very repetitive here, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. So this is why sometimes you can change the structure a little bit. You might want to say he's currently on 500
Metformin.
mg, right? What goes here?
500 mg metformin.
Off.
Off.
So 500 mg 3 times a day, Ramipril 500 mg daily, and warfarin and
3 times per day too.
say that again.
3 times per
Per
day.
day.
Per day sounds better than daily, to be honest. I hate daily.
Why? It's
I don't know. It just doesn't sound natural.
Yeah.
You always get non-natives using a daily. It's per day, I would say, or a day. I use that more in my
Hello.
question.
Alan?
Go on.
Yeah. Can we put a semicolon before Ramipril?
Yeah. Now this is why I was saying with the semicolon. Some people like to do this, and you can actually separate out them. That's allowed, right? I don't actually teach that myself, but it's definitely correct if you want to do that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Number 10, please note that his daughter still requires education regarding Mr. Dunbar dietary needs. Problem? Oh, surely you can see it. Did anyone see it on number
Please
10?
note that.
Someone got it before. Someone in red has written it here. Look on the left.
Please note a comma and delete that.
You could if you want, but look, it's just that this
is
is correct.
daughter.
This is correct. You can do this if you
That
want,
is daughter.
but
Please
both are correct. We need apostrophe.
S.
After
We need S.
Dunbas.
Yeah, right. So, because the diet, who does it belong to?
Mr. Dunbar.
Right. Okay, number 11. What's wrong with this? Regarding Mrs. Hawthorne's background, she is married and has 2 children.
Background, comma.
Regarding
it's
Mrs.
like a
background,
like
comma.
Background,
Background,
definitely a
comma.
comma
She's
here, yeah.
married and has 2 children.
Apostrophe house.
Thank you. Hayat has seen it. Has everyone else seen it? This took the nurses a long time to find this. They all missed it. Did you miss it? What do we need here?
Apostrophe.
The background belongs to her, right? With names, you would always say things like, regarding Mrs. Hawthorne's diet, regarding Mrs. Hawthorne's background, regarding Mrs. Hawthorne's family, regarding Mrs. Hawthorne's diagnosis. It would always be the possessive S, okay? All right, last one is the bonus one, and I'll finish this class. So what is wrong with that sentence? It's not. It's the same as last time, isn't it?
Day, comma. Miss Day, comma.
So, Mrs. Day.
Upon today's visit, comma.
Yeah.
Miss Day presented.
Do you remember what we said about this?
Alone.
Yeah.
Of
her
fingers
of
her left hand.
of the left
hand.
hand.
Of her left hand.
But there's still a big problem here, and this is why it's the last one.
Comma before and.
And where's the what here?
Presented alone,
Fourth,
comma,
fifth.
and she
Fourth,
reported.
comma, fifth.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
You can have that one actually. Well spotted. I didn't see that actually. Yes, it should be because it's 2 clauses.
In addition, also after an addition.
In addition,
Now
comma.
that's the
In
problem, isn't it?
addition
Look,
to.
can I say in addition to the deterioration of symptoms as a separate sentence with full stops?
Oh,
No,
oh,
no, no, no.
no,
It doesn't.
no,
It
that's
In
doesn't
addition,
make
comma.
sense.
Her
Doesn't make
symptoms,
sense at
comma.
all.
Comma.
So, comma like that, right? Or what else could I do?
additionally.
Addition-
In
I can put
addition
something
to
here,
deterioration
can't
of
I?
her symptoms, she is not feeling well, or she is, means
Yeah,
there should be
exactly.
something.
So why
Uh,
did the person make that error? Why is the
in a-
person making that error there? This
Because
one.
of time?
Obviously time and stress and all trying to do 1,000 things at the same time. Yeah, I get it. But what's the confusion? There's a confusion here.
Where is the
Hmm?
incomplete sentences? You feel like this.
What follow after
Getting there, almost. Go on. This person
No.
doesn't understand.
Where is the verb?
Well, it's not to do with that. It's this person
No.
doesn't understand clauses.
Yeah.
Remember I said that the real tricky one is clauses, right? And understanding them. So I'll go through that tomorrow in the Q&A class. Okay, tomorrow is like a Q&A class. You can ask me anything about the week's classes, but I'll also prepare a little bit on commas and clauses tomorrow. Okay. The reason is, just to tell you, that is only one clause, right? I've lost it now. In addition to the deterioration of her symptoms, that's a clause that requires a second clause, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And that's the kind of thing that native speakers don't understand, because there's lots of errors for commas with native speakers. I'll teach you that tomorrow.
But
Okay.
if she writes like this in addition to that, then she doesn't need a second clause.
There's many different things we do. Right now it needs a second clause, but you could say in addition to that, yeah. But now it's a linker, isn't it? You've linked the two sentences together. It's a linking phrase. Yeah. And that's a great point, because now I've got comma with that. Ah. Remember I said you can't say please note that.
Yes, no comma.
Well, why can I say in addition to that?
This is the different, because
Can I-
in addition to, you need noun. So
Can I say there were deterioration?
No, you'd have to say there
No.
was
You cannot. There
deterioration.
was deterioration for symptoms.
You could say there was deterioration. There was some deterioration in her symptoms, maybe you could say. But the point here is this, look, please note that that's a linker. All right, so that's not a linker, that's a relative clause, isn't it? That's the difference. I'll try and talk about that as well tomorrow, because I've just realized that. Who said that? That was great. I forgot about that. Look, this one, guys, is linking phrase. That one's a relative clause. Maybe that's why everyone makes that mistake all the time. They're confusing linkers and relative clauses. Do you think?
Yeah.
Does anyone here make that mistake? I reckon a lot of you don't make that mistake, but maybe some of you do, okay? All right, well, I'll talk tomorrow about it. It's just, this is a relative clause. I'll explain more why it's a relative clause. Doesn't need a comma, but this one's acting as a linking phrase that joins two sentences together. Okay, so it does need a clause. All right, I'm going to say goodbye. I think I'll see you at 3 because Paul's got to go into a meeting. So if you want to come to the vocabulary, I'll be setting that up at 3. And I'll see you guys tomorrow where we'll continue with a bit more punctuation. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Ellen.
Preparation for this clauses before you teaching us.
The clauses, no, just review this class if you wouldn't mind, and review my study document. And then I'll just tomorrow I'll go through the 3 different sentence types: simple, compound, and complex.
Thank you so much.
Okay. You're welcome. It's dead easy, honestly. You'll get it really fast, Hayat. All right, I'll say goodbye and I'll see you all soon. Have a lovely day, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.